The just person has God on his side. This world is not for everybody. Those who want to lead spiritual and honest lives don't fit in it. Geronda, why don't they fit in? When someone is sensitive and finds himself in a harsh environment where people make his life hell, how can he survive? He will either start cursing or leave. But leaving is difficult because one needs to make a living. His boss tells him, I trust you because you don't steal. However, you have to mix the rotten with the fresh. Take out these fresh clover bales and put in some of the spoiled ones. He even makes him manager in order to keep him. Yet the poor man has to do as he is told to stay employed. And of course he cannot sleep at night and starts taking sleeping pills. Do you know how hard life is for honest people? They run into all kinds of difficulties and have to take all kinds of abuse from their employers. Life becomes hell for them. But what are they supposed to do? Quit? They have a family to feed. Should they stay? They'll run into more trouble. Should they obey their conscience or their boss? They are between a rock and a hard place. They can't stand it, but they remain patient and try to manage as best as they can. In another case, they have one employee do all the work while his colleague only shows up to collect his paycheck. I know of someone who was the department head somewhere. When the new administration came to power, they removed him from the post and replaced him with a party member who had not even graduated from high school. They made this new fellow the department head. But since he knew nothing about the work, they could not really transfer the previous manager to some other position. So what did they do? They just added a second desk in the office. The old boss did the work and the new one was just sitting at his desk smoking, chatting and drinking coffee. Completely shameless. And in addition to this, he was witless. He would say whatever came to his mind, and it was the other employee who had to take responsibility for it. In the end, the poor man had had enough. Maybe I should go somewhere else. There's not enough space for 2 desks. It is best that you stay here, he said one day to the new department head. And he got up and left because the new man was making his life hell. We are not talking about 1 or 2 days. It is unbearable to have deal with such a person every day. Honest people are pushed around and up in lesser positions. And sometimes they don't even let them be there. Others abuse them and step all over them. Don't we have the saying? They walk all over corpses. They stop at nothing. But the more people knock the just and honest person down, the more the good God lifts him up like a cork. But it takes a lot of patience. Patience clarifies many things. Anyone who wants to live a virtuous life and be honest in his work, whether he is a laborer, merchant, or whatever else, must be determined to take in stride from the time he begins his work, that he may reach a point where he will be unable to pay his rent. For example, if he has a store, before God's blessing comes upon him, he should not set out to obtain God's blessing with a goal like, if I get to the point of not being able to pay rent, then I will be granted customers. This is not the right way to think. God will not bless him if that is his intention. He must decide to live as God wills, no matter what the price. He must ask for God's help so that no matter what happens, he will not cheat or overprice things. Then God will not abandon him. His competitor may profit by hiking prices. What the honest man is selling for 50 drachmas, the dishonest man will sell for 500. At first, he will make a lot of money and become rich, but then his customers will find out that he is dishonest and his business will fail. He will not even have the money to pay rent. The honest man, on the other hand, will have so many customers that he will need to hire more workers. But God will test him first. A good man is tested at the hands of evil men. He is put through the fleece carder. When a person follows the devil's path and comes up with tricks and all kinds of deceptive schemes, his work is not blessed by God. Any work done with a deception does not lead to prosperity. Such people appear to do well at first, but in the end they fail. It's important that we start with God's blessing in everything we do. A just man has God on his side, especially if he has a little boldness with God, miracles happen. When someone lives according to the gospel, he is entitled to divine help. He walks with Christ. How else can we put it? He has earned God's help. This is the foundation on which everything rests. With that in place, there is nothing to fear. It is important that Christ, the Panagia, and the saints find comfort in everything we do. We will then have their blessing and the Holy Spirit will rest upon us. Honesty is more precious than the incomparable holy and precious cross. If someone is dishonest, even if he has a piece of the Lord's precious cross on him, it's as if he has nothing. But if he is honest, he has God's help, no matter what, even without a piece or a precious cross. Of course, if he has both, well then, he's got everything.